Well, hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go with our next section, our next part of our notes. This is called the most important sentence in world history. The most important sentence in world history. Back on July 4th, 1776, the Continental Congress declares its independence from England. Again, they say, we don't want to be part of this country anymore. We want to have our own country. And so they get together and they sign what's called the Declaration of Independence. Now, I asked you in class, was this a happy day? Was this one of these days that we celebrate? We do now. We celebrate the 4th of July now. We have picnics and parades and fireworks. But back then, that very first 4th of July, was it a happy day? No, it wasn't. And you got to understand what was going on back then. Here, these men, who were probably the most important men in the colony, they're the richest men, the most powerful men, the most influential men in the colonies, they were signing their name on a document that basically said, we don't want to be part of England anymore. We are declaring our independence. We don't want we don't want to be part of your government anymore. And they knew that England was not going to take this well. England was going to do everything they could to keep the country from separating. So there was probably going to be a war. So they were signing their name to the document that basically said, we are official traitors. We are against England. We are declaring our independence. And if there's a war, so be it. Now look at what's happening. We are going to be fighting. If there's a war, which there turned out to be, we're going to be fighting against the greatest army in the world. The greatest army in the world, which was England back then. And what was our army like? Our army was a bunch of farmers with guns. A bunch of farmers with guns led by a man who really didn't have a lot of experience. George Washington didn't have a lot of recommendations or references as far as leadership. Yet he was the one chosen to go and lead this group of farmers with guns against the greatest army in the world. And we were supposed to have this war. And the question was, what if we lose the war? Which, it looked kind of obvious that we were probably going to lose this war based on, what our armies look like. So if we lose the war, what happens? Who do you think England is going to go after first? Yeah, they're going to go after the people who signed their name to this document. So it was not one of these days where they're going to celebrate. They were scared. They were a little worried about their futures because they were signing their name to a document that basically said, we are traitors, and if we lose, you can come get us first. And that's exactly what was going to happen had the British won the war. Luckily, they didn't. But. So what happened was, in this document called the Declaration of Independence, there was the sentence, the most important sentence in world history. Let's see if you remember it. We hold these truths to be what? Right. Self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are, you don't know that one. They are what? They are endowed by their Creator with certain, another one you don't know, unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yeah, you knew those ones. You've heard that before. Yeah, so here's the sentence. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Very, very well-known sentence, but 8th graders, we don't know what it means. We don't know what it means. We know about some of these, but let's go over and find out what they mean. This was a sentence that was part of the Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson. He was the one who wrote most of it, and later on it was torn apart by the Congress because they didn't like what he wrote. In fact, one of the things he wrote was about slavery. He wrote slavery was bad. In other words, he wrote slavery was bad, even though he himself had slaves. Well, the southern states, colonies, they said, we have slaves. And if you're saying slaves are bad, you're saying that we're bad. So if you want us to sign that document, you got to scratch out that part about slavery. And what did he do? Yeah, Thomas Jefferson scratched out that part about slavery. And so we had slavery for another 100 years. Anyway, so let's find out what this means. Self-evident. We hold these truths to be self-evident. What does self-evident mean? Self-evident. Some truth that all men are created equal, that is self-evident. Self-evident. What does it mean? Example: Mr. Rangel has black hair. That's self-evident. Uh, Mr. Rangel is a teacher. That's self-evident. Mr. Rangel is tall. That's self-evident. What's the word? Yeah, obvious, but not just any kind of obvious. This is the obvious that you want to say like duh. It's self-evident. It's duh. The truth that all men are created equal is like duh. Everybody should know that. Problem was, at this time in history, very few people understood that and recognized that. You know, everybody is created equal. That's not what I was taught growing up. They say in the colonies, I was taught that the king is special and I'm ordinary. And Jefferson here is saying, no, 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 no. Everybody's equal. And just because you don't know it doesn't mean it's true. And it's one of those truths that's like obvious, like duh, self-evident. All men are created equal. Again, that nobody is better than anybody else. This is what Jefferson is saying. Nobody's better than anybody else. That is an obvious truth. One of those duh truths. Endowed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that we are endowed by our Creator. What does endowed mean? Endowed, like when you give an endowment, you're giving a gift. So endowed means given as a gift. And he's saying that we have been given this gift by our Creator, and we've been given this gift of certain unalienable rights. What does unalienable mean? Unalienable means natural, because an alien is not natural. Alien is from some other planet. He's not natural to this planet. He's natural to some other planet where he comes from. So unalienable means it's natural. So Jefferson is saying we have been given by our Creator these rights that are natural. They're like part of us. They're not weird. They're not special. They're natural to us. These rights. And I think I skipped one. Freedom, liberty, freedom, pursuit. Pursuit. We have a right to pursue happiness. And this is, again, something new in the world, because at this time, people accepted their spot, or their place in the world, place in the society. And even though they wanted to be somebody, they wanted to be successful, they knew that because they were born to a particular family, they didn't have a right to pursue that goal that would make them happy. So here Jefferson is saying we have a right to pursue or chase after or desire to have freedom, liberty, life, and that happiness, and we have that right based on this gift that's been given to us. That right, the fact that all men are created equal, that's one of those truths that is like duh. Everybody should know it. Now, why is it important to world history? Because it was new. This idea was new in the world. Up until now, people believed that the king was special and everybody else below the king was ordinary. If you were born to a rich family, you were a somebody. If you were born to a poor family, you were a nobody. And that's just the way it was. You were unlucky enough to be born into a poor family, so sorry. Your grandpa was a nobody, your dad was a nobody, you're going to be nobody, your kids are going to be nobody, and their kids are going to be nobodies. And here Jefferson is saying that's not the way it is. That's the way we've been taught, but that's not the truth. The truth is that all men are created equal. And what makes us special is not who we are, is not where we came from, is not who our family was. What makes us special is what we do with our life. That is what makes us special. A good example is Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin in America, he was special. He was one of the richest men in America. He was one of the smartest men in America. He was a somebody in America. But when he goes over to England or Europe, because his dad was a candle maker, one of the poor jobs, they looked down on him. And they said, you're a nobody here. Even though Ben Franklin was smarter than most of them over there, richer than most of them over there, he was still considered a nobody because of where he grew up, his dad's position in society. And so Jefferson is saying that's not true. Everybody has a natural right to be free. Everybody has a natural right to be happy. Everybody has a natural right to be a somebody. A somebody. He's saying a nobody can be a somebody. So this was something new to the world. And so all of a sudden, all around the world, a bunch of nobodies started saying, hey, I don't have to be treated like a nobody. I'm a somebody, and I'm going to fight to be treated like a somebody. And we have examples of that today. People in other countries start believing the idea, and they start having their own revolutions and saying, if England doesn't need a king, if America doesn't need a king, then we don't need a king either. If America says the king is ordinary and we are, all equal, then why are we serving this king or this emperor or whatever? And there were, and this statement that all men are created equal still motivates us today. There was a group of people not that long ago who were treated like nobodies. They were treated like nobodies until someone got the idea to look back in history and read what Thomas Jefferson said. Thomas Jefferson said all men are created equal, and that woke some people up in this group of people who were treated like nobodies. They said, no, 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 we're not going to be treated like nobodies. Thomas Jefferson said all men are created equal. That means we are equal too, and we should fight for our rights. And that's what they did. Who were these people? Right, the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King. He fought for the rights of those who were treated like nobodies at the time, and look what happened. They began to take a stand and demand their equality, and that's what happened. Another group of people back a little earlier, they were treated like nobodies. They were treated so bad that they were not even given the respect that they deserved, so they couldn't even vote. They were not even allowed to vote because they were just nobodies in the eyes of the society. Who were these people? Right. This was women's right. Women began to say, hey, Thomas Jefferson said all men are created equal, but really he's talking about all men and women, all mankind, and that means that we are equal. So they began to demand their rights, they demand their equality. So you see how this one sentence said back in 1776 has had effect even up to now. And even now people are still taking that sentence and applying it to their lives and saying, we are not nobodies, we are somebodies, and we are going to demand a right to be treated as somebodies. And so this is why I consider that one sentence: we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is the most important sentence, not only in the colonies, not only in America, but in the world. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We will be taking a test on this pretty soon, so go back and study, listen to this video again, and be ready for the test coming up. All right, that's all for now. This is Mr. Angel saying I'll see you in class. Bye-bye.